Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play Rainbow Connection by Kermit the Frog. So this was actually a song that was voted on and requested by you guys. So if you have a song that you'd like to request, please leave it in this forum post right here. I'll put the link in the description box below. But every couple months or so, we'll go through that list and we'll pick a few songs and let you guys vote on which one we arrange and teach. So let's talk a little bit about this tune. So as you guys heard, it's an adorable song with a cute melody, but I think the big takeaway of this piece is that it's going to help you work on building sustain in your playing. So let's break down what that means. Now, when we listen to this song, we hear this beautiful ringing from one note or one chord into the next. So in essence, it kind of sounds like this if you were to sing it. La da 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 da. So you just hear a beautiful sustain where one note, one chord all rings into the next one. You don't hear ba ba da da da, right? It's no choppy, no staccato, nothing like that. So if you're new to working on that aspect of your playing, I'd highly encourage you to watch this lesson as you go through the lesson for Rainbow Connection. So it's going to give you a lot of tips and tricks for building and working on sustain in your playing. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this lesson video. So in this video, you're going to be learning the entire song. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, you can do so by clicking this link or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Rainbow Connection. Now, also on that page is going to be the on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this tune, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Today we're going to work on a solo arrangement of the Rainbow Connection. To start, we're going to work on the iconic intro. And the first chord we're going to play is a C chord, but not our everyday C. Instead, we're going to take our ring finger and place it here on the 7th fret of the A string. To start, we're going to play the open C string, and I'm using a 4 or 3 finger picking style. Both will work as long as you have multiple fingers over the strings. I like to start with the 4 finger, so my index playing the 0 on the C, thumb on the open G, ring finger on the 7 on the A, open G again, 7 on the A again, and open on the G again. Now the beginning of this has a swing feel. So when you're playing this, you want to make sure you're getting that 1 and 2 and 3 and sort of sound. But let's go and listen to the first measure. It should sound something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Going on to the second measure, what we're going to do here is take our index finger, bar it across the 5th fret, and then take our pinky and stretch it out to 8 on the A to create this F chord. We're going to play the 5 on the C, 5 on the E, and then the G, 5, and the 8 on the A together. So that measure is something like this, 2 and 3 and. So that we can hear it, the intro, bars 1 and 2 together sound something like this, and you'll notice it actually repeats. So we're going to play each measure twice all the way through. So it sounds something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. From here we go on to B, melody B. And this is going to start with the vocal part, although we're going to be playing it all on a solo ukulele. To begin, we're going to play a different C chord, a more typical C chord. I like to take my index finger here and place it on the 3rd fret of the A string. I'm going to play my open C and E strings together to start this measure. And then my open G, and then the 3 on the A. So that measure in time, 2 and 3 and. Going on to measure 4, we're going to go to an A minor, and this is kind of a different A minor than you might usually play. Instead of being down here, we're going to go kind of up high. We're going to play 5 on the E and the A strings. And I like to do this by taking my index finger and actually barring across the E and A string. So I have 0, 0, 5, 5. And then I'm going to take my ring finger and place on the 7 of the A string and play that twice. So measure 4 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and. As I go back into measure 5 now, we're going to move down the fretboard for this G sus4 chord. Take your middle finger, place it on the 2nd fret of the C string, index finger here on the 1st fret of the E, and then we can actually take our ring finger and place it on 3 of the A. To start, we'll play the C and E strings together, then the open G, and then the 3 on the A. So in time, that's something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into measure 6, for the first chord here, the F sus2, all that we need to do is take this middle finger away, leaving the index on 1 of the E and the ring here on 3 of the A string. 1 on the E with the index, 3 on the A with the ring. That creates the F sus2. We're going to pluck those 3 strings. And then we're going to move what's called a G5 chord. To play this G5, our index is going to go to 2 of the C, middle to 3 of the E, and our pinky finger is going to go up to 5 on the A string. We're going to pluck the C, E, and A together. And then the very end of that measure, we're going to play 2 on the C. So in time, measure 6 should be something like this. 2 and 3 and. So now that we can hear the first 4 bars, though, of melody B, it should be something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Going right on now into measure 7, we're going to go back to a C chord, but in this case, we're just going to be all open. Pretty convenient. We're going to pluck our C and E strings together, then just the G string. Then we're going to play a G chord. To play this, index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string, and middle finger here to the 2nd fret of the A. Pluck the C, E, and A strings together. So measure 7 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into measure 8 now, we're going to play an A minor, a little bit different than the one we played before. Take your index finger, place it here on the 2nd fret of the G string. Ring finger is going to go to the 3rd fret of the A string. Pluck all 4 strings. Alternatively, you can also strum through with the thumb. And then you're going to take the index off for the open G. So that measure 8, sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going now into measure 9, we're going to want to go to one of my all-time favorite chords on the ukulele, an F add 9. To play this, you're going to take your index, place it on 1 of the E string, and that's it. We'll strum through with our thumb or pluck all 4 strings, followed by the open C and 1 on the E. So measure 9 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and. Now going on to measure 10, we're going to go back to that G sus4 chord, but this time we're going to play all 4 strings at the same time. To play that chord, middle finger here on 2 of the C, index on 1 of the E, and ring finger here to 3 on the A. Strum through all 4, or pluck all 4, both work. And then we're going to take our ring finger and move it down to fret 2 to finish that measure. So measure 10 sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Now, so that we can hear it, measures 7, 8, 9, and 10 should sound something like this played together. 2 and 3 and. From here we go on to the next measure, measure 11, which is exactly the same as measure 3, which is pretty convenient. Exactly the same measure, so in time that's something like this. 2 and 3 and. But then as we go on to measure 12, it's a little bit different than measure 4 was. Here on measure 12, we're going to start with our G5 chord, so index on the 2nd fret of the C string, middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string, and our pinky finger here on the 5th fret of the A string. We can strum through or pluck, both are okay. But what we have to know is that this is going to make a fast movement. We're going to, from this, move up to 7 on the A. So it's going to go through and then immediately up to 7. And then following this, we're going to play an A minor 7 chord. And what we do is we keep this pinky finger here on 7 of the A because that's the melody note. We want that to continue to sustain. But then we're going to add our middle finger to fret 5 of the E string and strum nice and softly the 0 on the G, 0 on the C, and the 0 on the E, being very careful not to touch the A string so that it can continue resonating. And that's just a nice little harmony in the background. So that sound of the G5 to the 7 and then that chord, leaving that note ring. And then the final part of that measure is just going to be then taking off the middle finger to play the open E. So measure 12 in time should be something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going on now to measure 13. Go back to our G sus4 chord. In fact, this is exactly the same as measure 5. So middle finger here on 2 of the C, index on 1 of the E, ring here on 3 of the A, pluck the C and the E together, open G, 3 on the A. Exactly the same. In time, that's something like this. 2 and 3 and. And then pretty neat here because measure 14 is exactly the same as measure 6. So we start with that F sus2. Just take off your middle finger from the previous bar, play the C, E, and A, and then you go back to that G5 chord that we've played a few times now at this point, followed by the 2 on the C. So that, again, is exactly the same as measure 6. So measure 14 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and. So measures 11, 12, 13, and 14 should sound something like this played together. 2 and 3 and. Now as we go on, we're going to go to measure 15, and 15 is going to be pretty familiar because it's the same as measure 7. Start with the open C and open E strings together, open G, and then a G chord. And then in time, that'll sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. Oh, and I went on. You can hear that A minor chord is such a nice resonance. And that's what we start with on measure 16. That same A minor, 2 on the G string, 3 on the A string with your index and ring fingers. So 16, we play that chord, and then we're going to do this nice little fill. 3 on the A, then open G. So 16 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. And then we go on to measure 17 now, and 17 is going to be that same F add 9 chord, just your index finger on the 1st fret of the E string, strum through all 4 strings, then open C, 1 on the E. In time, that's something like this. 2 and 3 and. And then measure 18, which is the final measure of melody B. It's going to be that G sus4 chord again. So to play that, well, if we're on that F add 9 from just a moment ago, we leave that finger there. Add our ring finger here to 3 on the A string, middle finger here to 2 on the C string. Strum through all 4 or pluck all 4. As we're going through this, you really can pluck or strum whenever you feel like it suits it better. Unless I'll go back and forth depending on what sort of texture I want for that. We're going to strum through all 4 and then 2 on the A, so that ring finger just slides down. So in time, measure 18 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. So now 15, 16, 17, and 18 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. And so now that you can hear it, let's hear melody A, or rather melody B, in its entirety. We're going to do now from measures 3 all the way through measures 18. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Whew. So let's go ahead and give it a go. Here's what it sounds like in time. 2 and 3 and. So now we're going to go on to melody C. And to start this, we're going to go up the fretboard, bar all the way across the 5th fret with our index finger. Then take your ring finger and add it on 7 of the A string. We're going to start by plucking our G, C, and E strings for going the A. Then we're going to pluck the A. Then the E. So 19, 2 and 3 and. Going into 20, we're going to now pluck all 4 strings, then the A string, or E string, excuse me, and then the A string. So measure 20 in time, 2 and 3 and. Going on to 21, you'll notice 21 is the same as 19, so G, C, and E strings, A, E string. So in time, 2 and 3 and. And then we go on to 22, pluck all 4 strings again, and then pluck just the E string and let it ring through the rest of the measure. So 22 in time, 2 and 3 and. Now 19, 20, 21, 22, you can really start to hear this new melody section. Sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. Now we go on to measure 23. We're going to play kind of a spicy chord in this song, a G major 7. To do this, just take your index finger and bar it across the 2nd fret of the C, E, and A strings. And go ahead and go through all 4 strings. And then the 2 on the A 2 more times. So 23 in time, 2 and 3 and. Going into 24, you're going to play this same sort of G major 7 chord, but now you're going to take your pinky and put it up to 5 on the A string. And we're going to strike our C, E, and A strings. Then we'll take the pinky off to play 2 on the A, and then the open G. So 24, 2 and 3 and. Going right into 25, still holding that same chord shape, we're going to strike the C, E, and A, and then the C, and then the E. So in time 25, 2 and 3 and. And then as we go now into measure 26, we're going to play the 2 on the A string. And that's all we're going to do for the entirety of that measure, which is kind of nice. Nice little break. So in time, 2 and 3 and. So measures 23, 24, 25 now in time. should sound something like this. 23, 24, 25, and 26. 2 and 3 and... Now we go on to measure 27. At measure 27, we're going to be playing a different chord, different than the G major 7, but familiar to earlier in the song. Go back to that G sus4. So middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, index on the 1st fret of the E string, ring finger here to the 3rd fret of the A, pluck the C and the E. Then we're going to take the ring off. We're going to play open on the A, and then add that finger back on for 3. 27, 2 and 3 and... As we go into 28 now, we're going to play a G chord. So we're going to flip all these fingers around, index to 2 on the C, ring on 3 of the E, middle on 2 of the A, play all 4 strings. And then we're going to go to our F sus2 chord. So index finger comes down to 1 on the E string, ring finger goes up to 3 on the A. Play that all the way through. And then the open G. So 28, 2 and 3 and... And now as we go into 29, we're going to play an E minor 7 chord, and our melody note's on our G string, on a high G. So we're going to upstrum. So to do this, we're going to take our middle finger, place on the 2nd fret of the A string, index on 2 of the C string. Take your index finger and then strum up. But when you do this upstrum, the G string is the melody. So we want to really pluck that string more pronounced. Then we'll play the 2 on the A, followed by the 5 on the A with our pinky stretching out. Now the goal is that we can hold this chord because of what happens, but I understand if it's too big of a stretch, in which case try to leave the index finger on 2 of the C and take off the middle finger, see if you can get that stretch, because when you look at the next part, we're going to play that chord again. So measure 29 though in time should be something like this. 2 and 3 and... Now as we go into 30, we go back to that E minor 7, 0, 2, 0, 2. And then we're going to play an A7, and this is one of my favorite ways to play this chord on the uke. We're going to take these 2 fingers from the E minor 7, we're going to just move it up 2 frets. So we're at 4 with the index on the C string, and 4 on the A string with our middle. And then we're going to add the ring finger to 5 on the E string. We're going to strum through all 4 strings. And then we're going to open the E string for the last note of that bar. So in time, measure 30 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and... So that we can hear it, here's 27, 28, 29, and 30, going all the way through. 2 and 3 and... We go on now to measure 31. To play this, we're going to take our middle finger, place it on the 2nd fret of the C string, and we're going to take our index and place it on the 1st fret of the E string, and pluck those 2. Then the open A, then the 3 on the A. So now with that in time, it should be like this. 2 and 3 and... As we go on into measure 32 now, we're going to play a G13 chord. I know I've been saying my favorite chord a lot during this tutorial, but the truth is when I was doing this arrangement, I got really excited because it got to use all my favorite voicings of chords. It's one of the reasons why I like doing this arrangement so much. And this is no exception. This G13 chord is one of my favorites on the ukulele. To play this, we're going to take our index finger, place it here on the 5th fret of the C string. Then we're going to take our ring finger and bar it across the 7th fret of the E and the A strings. If it's easier for you, you can actually bar with the index across those strings too, but it doesn't have to just because the only string it needs to play is the C string there. And then we're going to strum through all 4 of these strings for one of my favorite chords. Super jazzy. We're going to play the 7 on the A again. And then we're going to peel our ring finger off so it's only on the 7 of the E string, with the index finger now going full bar across the C, E, and A strings on the 5th fret. So we have 0, 5, 7, and with the bar 5 there on the A. And pluck that where it is, those 4 strings. So now measure 32 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and... And that is the end of melody C. So that we can hear it though, let's hear measures 31 and 32 together. It should be something like this. 2 and 3 and... And now that we can hear the whole thing, let's hear all of melody C. So measures 19 all the way through measures 32. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and... Oh, I went too fast. 2 and 3 and... Now from this part, we go on to the next section, which is the outro, melody D. We're going to start this with a C chord. We're going to just take our middle finger, ring finger, or index finger. Honestly, it doesn't really matter because of what comes next. But let's go and use our middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the A string. Play our G, C, E open with that 3rd fret on the A. Then the open C, open E. And that's all of measure 33. Sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and... So we go on now into measure 34. We're going to play our trusty G5 chord that we've been playing throughout this. 0, 2, 3, 5, strum all the way through. Now, here's the trick to this one. When we play this G5 this time, the next note we have to play after this chord is 3 on the A, which is kind of difficult to get to. So the way that we make this a little bit easier is on this G5, we actually bar with our middle finger on the 3rd fret on the E and the A, so that when we play it, we can just strip away the pinky to play the 3 on the A, and then add the pinky back for 5 on the A. So measure 34 is something like this. 2 and 3 and... Going on to 35. We're going to take this same little G5 shape. We're going to take off the index, slide it up 2 frets so that we have 5 on the E with our middle finger and 7 on the A with our pinky. Strum through all 4 strings. And then we're going to take our pinky off. And if we're barring there with the middle finger, you'll notice that the 5 on the A is covered. And then we're going to play 3 on the A with our index finger there. So 35 is something like this. 2 and 3 and... And as we go on to measure 36, C5 chord, all that we do is take our index finger, place it here on 3 of the E string, and play our C and E strings together, and then the open G. That's all of 36, sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and... So here's measures 33, 34, 35, 36, all in time. 2 and 3 and... Going on now to the home stretch, measures 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41 finish the song. So starting here with 37, we're going to play that F add 9 chord, just your index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string. And then we're going to play 2 with our middle finger on the A string, and then 3 on the A string with our ring finger. So that in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into 38, same sort of rhythm that's taking place, but now with a different chord. We're going to play our C5 again. And we can use our index finger here, and then play the open A, and then we can just collapse the index to play 3 on the A. So in time, that measures something like this. 2 and 3 and. And then as we go into 39, we're going to play an F6. Really pretty chord, just bar all the way across 5 with the index. And that's it for that measure in time. 2 and 3 and. And then we're going to go back to, again, one of my favorite chords ever, G13. We're going to move that bar to be just 5 on the C with the index, and then double bar the 7 on the E and the A string with the ring finger. And we're going to play that chord, let it ring for a moment. Then you're going to go down to 2 on the A string with the index, and that in time, measure 40, something like this. 2 and 3 and. And then to finish it here on measure 41, just a C chord, slide that index finger up to 3 on the A. So in time, that is 2 and 3 and. So here is now measures 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, so that you can hear that whole end section should be something like this. 2 and 3 and. And so that you can hear it, here's the entire outro. So now measures 33 through the end. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. And that is the Rainbow Connection. It's a really, really fun arrangement. And if you go all the way through this, you'll notice that the most important thing is sustain. Let those chords really breathe and ring out. And so when you're working on this song and you're trying to make it sound really advanced, it's not about the complexity of it. It's about the simplicity of these chord voicings to continue ringing out as you play them. I think it's a really great exercise to get better with sustain. So I hope you enjoyed this. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And I'll see you guys next time for the next lesson here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed learning this song. It's such a cute and adorable melody, and the fact that it helps you work on increasing your sustain is like icing on the cake. So I do want to remind you, if you want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, you can do so by clicking this link or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Rainbow Connection. Also on that page was the really cool on-screen tab viewer where you can hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, I hope you enjoyed learning this tune, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.